Hey there, how's it going? I'm Edwin, and welcome to your third Pebble development tutorial. Today we're going to be looking over all sorts of time-related functions and pointers. So today we're going to be looking over tick handlers, AppTimers, and this thing called struct. So to start, we're going to start with a tick handler. So tick handlers are used to handle the passing of time in different chunks. So there are different units that can be called when appropriate, and you register your tick handler with one of these units. So there's the second unit, minute unit, hour unit, day unit, etc. There's even, I believe, a year unit, which I don't know why you'd need it, maybe for like a New Year's app, but it's there. So basically, these units are sort of self-explanatory. Second unit will call the tick handler every second. The minute unit will call it every minute, etc. So one tick handler can be registered per app at a time. So this means you can't have two different tick handlers registered. I don't believe. When I've done that, it's caused issues with my app. Maybe it was just when I was early on in development, but it should just be one. And one of your parameters of tick handler is struct. So I brought that up uh, earlier, and we'll be looking over that in a second. So here are some tick handler basics. This is how you sort of set up a tick handler, and it's very, very easy to do. It's literally, I guess, 3 lines to get your tick handler function ready. So you just have to call tick timer service subscribe, and those parameters. The first parameter is your unit, so second unit, minute unit, hour unit, etc. And your second parameter is your actual tick handler. So the type def for tick handler, the first parameter is struct, and the second parameter is time units. So the time units parameter basically tells you what was changed, so seconds, minutes. It will just tell you what you put in for your subscribe function. And so that's going to be called depending on your unit. And you can see here we just have it going vibes double pulse. So every time tick handler runs, it's just going to double pulse, make a short double pulse. And that's just for an example. It's not like you'd really need that. And then there's also tick timer service unsubscribe. So to stop getting a subscription to the tick handler, so it's not called again, you call tick timer service unsubscribe, and you put in your this is actually wrong. This is wrong. I just realized. Since there's only one tick handler at a time, you only put in, you don't put in any parameters. You just leave it like this. No parameters inserted. So just ignore that. That's wrong. You're going to get an error if you try to do that. All right, so now this is a really crucial part to keeping track of time and everything. Struct is a pointer used for storing time variables such as minutes, second, years, months, days, like basically any sort of time related variable you're looking for, you can find it in struct. And this is really handy because in our tick handler here, you can see we have struct being passed into the tick handler without you having to do anything. Okay. So this is struct. It's used for storing time variables such as minutes, seconds, and years. There are a bunch of different variables you can use in its contents, and as you can see here, struct is actually passed into the tick handler automatically. As long as you have your tick handler registered, you can get that struct without you having to create it or anything. And so here in our struct, we'll just go over a few of the variables that you can get from it. So tmsec is your seconds after the minute. Tmmin is your minutes after the hours. There's days. This is days of the month. So 1 to 31. This is your month. So the amount of months since January. So this won't be 1 to 12. It's 0 to 11. You'll find that in programming if you're new. This is the year. So year since 1900. And the weekday, so the day since Sunday, the day since January 1st, you probably won't need that very much, and the daylight savings time flag. I don't know how this works. I've actually never used the daylight savings time flag so that's for you to explore if you ever need it. I never needed it or used it, but you can look into that. Alright, so here's a simple example of how to use struct TM. In case you've never worked with pointers before in C, you can see here to get data out of the TM struct, we have to make this sort of arrow thing. And so we put T there, then the arrow, and the variable name that you want to get. So whatever you see here that you want, you'd put it after that arrow. It's sort of pointing to it, saying I want TM sec. So it's putting that into an integer variable called seconds. Same with minutes, is grabbing TM min. Hours is grabbing the hour. And then we just have a simple app log here that's saying log it as level info, and then it's printing the seconds, printing the minutes, printing the hours, respectively. And so our last sort of timer function, or our last sort of timing function, this one's going to be really handy when you get further into Pebble development, is AppTimer. So AppTimer is generally used for handling precise measurements of time. You can you basically register an AppTimer with an amount of milliseconds you want it to wait for, and that doesn't pause the thread or anything. It doesn't freeze your watch app. It's not like sleep. If you've ever worked with Arduino, it's not like sleep where it pauses the whole thread. It runs in the background. So AppTimers are really great if you need, something under a second, or if you need to call a function at a specific amount of time. Instead of where in tick handler it's called every second, it's very dependable, but AppTimer is for accurate measurements of time. And so AppTimer has a callback function. So this means when the AppTimer is out of time, the function you provided as a callback gets called, and it runs through that whole thing top to bottom. And the AppTimer can also pass data into that function. So you can pass any sort of pointer you'd like through that through into that callback function, and we'll be looking at that now. So here's our AppTimer example code. So we have AppTimer register and a callback. So here we are, AppTimer. Here we have our AppTimer. Oh, I actually forgot to include the AppTimer up here, but basically to define it, you're just going to go AppTimer, spelled like that, capital T, capital A, and then pointer and your app variable name. Let's pretend like it's there. So AppTimer is equal to AppTimer register. This is going to return an AppTimer. So if you don't have this here, it's not going to register because you're just calling the function and it's returning something, but it's not inserting that into a variable. And then you put your amount of milliseconds you want it to run for. So I have it for 2300 milliseconds. And then you put in your callback. So here we see our callback. And you put in, if you want, you can put in your pointer here. So if you're not putting anything in or you don't need to get any data, then you can just put null. So null means you don't have anything there. You're not going to be using that. But if you want an example of how this might help is when you're dealing with animations, you might want to keep track of after the animation is done, you call that animation again. With this AppTimer, you pass in that animation's pointer, or the layers pointer you want to animate, and it runs through again. So now we'll look at our callback. So we have a local variable called window here, window pointer, and we're assigning this pointer to the window pointer. And then simply here we have app log. It's just logging that you got a callback, printing the pointer, and that's basically it. And then for maximum fun, you can use recursion in these AppTimer callbacks. So you can actually recreate the timer at the bottom of the callback or wherever you want. So we've just registered our timer like last time. We're passing in our window again, and that will just continuously repeat every 2300 milliseconds. And so you might be curious, when should I use a tick handler or an AppTimer if I haven't been specific enough? So tick handlers should be used for keeping track of time, sort of in the standard format. Like if you're making a watch face, you want to use a tick handler to insert the minutes, hours, etc. into your text layer. You're going to want to use tick handler if you're keeping track of how many hours have passed since your app is turned on, or whatever sort of basic time handling functions you can use your tick handler. AppTimer should be used for specific amount of time. So if you need to run something after 400 milliseconds, you use an AppTimer because you can't use a tick handler. Or let's say you need 4,700 milliseconds or even greater, then you can use an AppTimer for that. And so I know that was probably a lot of info in a short little bit there, but we're going to go over some example code now. Of course, you can rewind this video and see all of the examples I provided if you still want to get a feel for the functions. And of course, if you're ever confused, Pebble has great resources on developer.getpebble.com where you can find all the documentation for all of this, and it better explains it. And so you don't have to worry about looking only at my examples. You have this beautifully laid out developer documentation. All right, so now we're going to get into some example code. Just ignore these. It's from one of my other projects. All right, so let's start off fresh. We're just going to have our, let's not even have this. We just have our window and main function and everything all set up for us. So now we're going to go ahead and register a tick handler. So that's tick timer service subscribe. Pass in your unit. So I'm going to do minute unit. We don't need to call it every single second. And we're going to pass in our handler name, which we're going to be creating in a second. Down here, we're going to make sure we unsubscribe. And remember, I got it wrong the first time. You don't pass in any parameters, you just call it, and it unsubscribes automatically. So now let's create our tick handler function. We pass in struct tm. We're going to call it t, and our time units. Units changed. And you can name these whatever you want. You can name this time. You can name this tm, capital T, capital M. You can do whatever you want as long as it's a valid variable name. Alright, so now in our tick handler, we need something to do. So I say we create a text layer and put on some variables from the tm struct. So if you guys remember how to create a text layer from my last tutorial, try to set that up on your own without looking at what I'm doing. I'm just setting the font here. Adding it to the window. And let's actually create a window layer. We're getting the root layer of our text layer, so we can add it on top of our window layer. And now we've set up our text layer. And let's actually change this to second unit because we want to see our changes quick instead of having to deal with waiting. Okay, so now with our tick handler, we have our text layer set up, we have our tick timer service subscribed, and now we have to deal with our tick handler. So what we're just going to draw on this text layer is simply the time. So in C, there is some standard functions you can use to insert the time into a character pointer. So we can use snprintf, or there is strftime. So C++ reference it's the same as C. So basically what we're going to do with strftime is pass in our char pointer, we're going to pass in our size of the pointer, and we're going to pass in the format, and lastly the struct tm pointer that we want to insert into that format. So you can see here, you can Google this and look at all the different specifiers you can use in this to grab different sort of types of time. So first we're going to create a static char called time format, and it's going to equal, alright, so let's use strftime, put in time format, and get the size of time format, and then what do we want our format to be? So we want hour in 12-hour format, let's say, so that's %i. So %i, and then we want to put in the minutes, so %m, capital M. Oh. And then we also, for demonstration purposes, we're going to put in the seconds, so %s. And calm down, 24-hour users, we're going to deal with you in a second. And I'm one of those as well. Alright, so now with strftime, we have our time formatted, but we're not doing anything with it. So remember, text layer set text. We're going to pass in our text layer. We're going to pass in our time format, and boom, our text layer has been set up. Our tick handler is being called every second, and it's going to update the time here with the hours, minutes, seconds, and insert it into our text layer. But what about 12-hour users? Well, with Pebble comes one very simple function you can use to see whether or not the user is using 12-hour format or 24-hour format. So you can go if, let me check it. Okay, so here we are. We can go if clock is 24H style. Okay, so now we've got our tick handler set up. We've got it inserting the time format into our text layer here every time it's called, putting in the hour, minute, and second. But this doesn't deal with 24-hour users, and if you're looking to make a watch face, this isn't very good because you're only gonna, satisfy half your users, or approximately half. So with Pebble comes a very awesome function that's simple. It's called, clock is 24H format. I believe it's that. 24-hour style. So clock is 24-hour style. And sorry, this is a little, I don't remember everything specifically because I'm running with no autocomplete and, Alright, so now it's checking if the clock is not 24 hours, insert the 12-hour time format. If it is, we're going to do a custom function for our 24-hour users here. So here we have strftime. We're going to do hour and 24-hour format. So %h. %h. There we go. So now everything's set up. It's inserting our struct tm pointer into this time format and setting it to our text layer. Sorry if this is a little slow or a little fast. I just want to make sure that you guys understand exactly what's going on. Alright, so now let's run this. If you're on Cloud Pebble, that means go to compile and click run. Uh-oh. Alright, so it turns out I had outdated firmware, and then my router went down, and then everything just went to crap. So, meanwhile, I found a few bugs in my code. So previously we had set this static char to a pointer. It should be an array. And you should increase the length of that array by 2 or 3 because the size of it will be incorrect and you'll get a cutoff text if you try to do that. So now I've installed it and it works fine. So just gonna demo it here. So you can see our little time in the right hand corner, and we got our hours, minutes, and seconds. Printing every time the tick handler is called. Alright, so now you've got your tick handler set up and everything. You're going to want to, do more than just show the time in a lame font in the corner of the screen. So let's use an AppTimer and a layer to create a little bit of an effect on the screen. So let's create our layer. So we're using layer create to create it. We're going to set our update process. We're going to add our layer to the window. Alright, so with this, we're going to make it so every second, or every, let's say 500 seconds, or 500 milliseconds, it moves the layer over a little bit. So let's create an int here called layer tracking. We're going to set it to 0. We're going to say layer tracking. No, wait. So this is actually just our proc. This doesn't have anything to do with the AppTimer yet. So we're going to create our AppTimer here. So AppTimer timer. We're going to set it down here using AppTimer register. We're going to pass nothing into it, so we can just put null. Here we're going to set our AppTimer callback with void data. We need this here anyway, but since we're not passing anything in, we can just leave it like that. So that also means that, alright, so that means since we're not passing anything into the callback, we can actually just call any function that doesn't have any parameters. So let's say we had a function up here that didn't have any parameters and we wanted to call it at the end of this timer. We could just put in that function's name here. But we're going to use our own dedicated callback. So here, when it's called back, we're going to want to restart that timer recursively, right? So that it keeps running on and on. So we're also going to increment our layer tracking by 1. And then we're going to mark our effect layer dirty, so that means it's going to tell the system to refresh that layer, redraw anything it's doing. It can draw. So using layer mark dirty, pass in the effect layer, and zip zap zooey. We're going up here now to our effect prop, where we can draw whatever we want. So let's do graphics draw. Let's do graphics draw line. So we can, I'm pretty sure that's a function. I'm going to draw on our CTX with a G point X of 0, or G.1, we're going to do 72 and 84. So halfway. And for this, we're going to do say 2 times effect, or 2 times layer tracking, and 1 and just layer tracking. That'll be pretty cool. Okay, so this should work in theory if I've got all my function calls correct. Alright, so it's built successfully. We're going to install that. And I can just show you over here. You can see a little line in the middle there. You see it's moving with every second. We have our layer being marked dirty. It's getting smaller and smaller and moving around the screen. And now it's getting bigger. Alright, so last but not least, let's toy around with struct TM a little. So here we're just going to grab the minutes and seconds, and instead of layer tracking, let's put in minutes and seconds there. So let's create an integer called minutes up here, set it to 0, and seconds, set it to 0. Oh. So here in our tick handler, we're going to want to set minutes to tm min. So you're pulling that from the pointer. Then we're going to want to set seconds to t, pointer arrow, tm sec. And now, instead of layer tracking, let's do minutes here and seconds here. And then just to spice it up, we'll do, because we want to use our AppTimer, we'll do layer tracking here. And this is going to be all over the place. I don't see why you'd want this, but just for demonstration purposes, and you can show off to someone that you've made a pretty line move across the screen on your watch, then we're going to do this. So what a shocker, it's going to time out. Alright, so now you can see here, we've got our line there, and slowly but surely, it is moving across the screen. You see that? So now it's not stuck to one static point and moving around like a hand. It's now moving around depending on the minute and everything. And that is your third Pebble tutorial on tick handlers, AppTimers, and struct. We've incorporated previous elements such as text layer and layer, and we're going to be building on top of this project in the next tutorial. So save this code. We're going to clean it up a little, make it actually more useful, and yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good one.